The scream pierced through the peaceful afternoon like a knife through silk, shattering the suburban tranquility of Maple Grove neighborhood in ways no one could have anticipated. Juan Martinez stood on her immaculate front lawn, her face contorted with rage, her manicured finger pointing accusingly at 10-year-old Marcus Thompson, who sat frozen on the curb, vanilla ice cream dripping from his shocked fingers onto the hot concrete below. "Get away from my property, you little criminal!" Hoa shrieked, her voice carrying across the tree-lined street where children had been playing hopscotch just moments before. The ice cream cone lay smashed at Marcus's feet, a white puddle spreading across the sidewalk like spilled paint on canvas. His round face, still bearing the soft curves of childhood, crumpled as tears began to stream down his cheeks. Mrs. Patterson, watering her rose garden 3 houses down, dropped her hose and stared in disbelief. The Johnsons, who had been loading groceries from their car, stood motionless with bags dangling from their arms. Even the sparrows seemed to pause their chirping, as if nature itself held its breath at the unexpected violence of the moment. Marcus had been walking home from Henderson's corner store, where old Mr. Henderson had given him his usual Tuesday treat, a vanilla soft-serve cone that cost exactly the $1 his mother had tucked into his backpack that morning. The sun had been warm on his shoulders, the ice cream cool and sweet on his tongue, and he had stopped to sit on the public curb to enjoy it properly, just as his grandmother had taught him to savor life's small pleasures. He lived in the modest blue house at the end of Maple Street with his single mother, Diana, who worked double shifts at the county hospital to keep them afloat. Marcus was a quiet boy, thoughtful and gentle, who preferred books to video games and spent his afternoons reading under the old oak tree in their backyard. His classmates sometimes teased him about his weight, but he had learned to find solace in stories and the kindness of neighbors like Mr. Henderson. The neighborhood had always been his sanctuary, until today. Juan Martinez had moved to Maple Grove 6 months earlier with her husband Carlos, a successful real estate developer. She had immediately appointed herself the unofficial guardian of property values, measuring grass heights with a ruler and documenting every perceived violation in a leather-bound notebook she carried like a weapon. Her own lawn was a masterpiece of geometric precision, her flower beds arranged with military exactness. "I know what you're doing here," Hoa continued, her voice rising to a pitch that made several dogs in the neighborhood begin to bark. "Sitting there, watching, planning. I've seen the reports about gang recruitment. They start with little scouts like you, don't they?" Marcus wiped his nose with the back of his hand, confusion clouding his tear-filled eyes. "I just wanted to eat my ice cream," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the sound of his own sniffling. "Don't lie to me." Hoa stepped closer, her shadow falling across the boy like a dark cloud. "I've been watching you, every Tuesday, same time, same spot, casing the neighborhood, memorizing our routines. Well, not on my watch." She pulled out her phone with theatrical flourish, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the screen as she dialed. "Yes, 911, I need police backup immediately. There's a suspicious individual conducting surveillance on our neighborhood. Possible gang initiation activity. Yes, I'll hold." Mrs. Patterson finally found her voice. "Hoa, what are you doing?" "That's just little Marcus Thompson. He lives right down the street." "I don't care who he claims to be," Hoa snapped, not taking her eyes off the trembling boy. "Look at him. Look at the way he's positioned himself. He's got a clear view of at least 6 houses from that spot. This is textbook surveillance behavior." Mr. Johnson approached cautiously, his hands raised in a peaceful gesture. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Marcus is a good kid. He's just eating ice cream. Was eating ice cream, Hoa corrected, grinding the remains of the cone under her designer heel. Now he's trespassing and loitering with intent to commit criminal acts. I have every right to protect my investment and this community's safety. Marcus tried to stand, his legs wobbly with fear and confusion. I want to go home, he said, his voice breaking on the word home. Please. I just want to go home. Oh no, you don't move until the police get here, Hoa commanded, stepping in front of him. You're going to explain exactly what gang sent you and what they're planning. What none of them noticed was Sarah Chen, the college student who lived in the apartment complex across the street. She had been on her balcony, editing a video project for her journalism class, when Hoa's screaming had drawn her attention. Her camera, still recording from her abandoned assignment, captured every moment of the encounter with crystal clarity. The police arrived 12 minutes later. Two officers who knew the neighborhood well. Officer Rodriguez had been patrolling Maple Grove for 8 years and had watched Marcus grow from a toddling 3-year-old to the thoughtful boy he was today. Officer Kim was newer to the beat, but had already formed positive relationships with most of the families in the area. What seems to be the problem here? Officer Rodriguez asked, his experienced eyes quickly assessing the situation, taking in the destroyed ice cream, the crying child, and the agitated woman whose body language screamed of someone spoiling for a fight. Thank goodness you're here, Hoa said, smoothing her hair and adjusting her posture into what she clearly believed was her most authoritative stance. I've been monitoring suspicious activity in our neighborhood, and this individual has been conducting surveillance operations. Officer Kim knelt down to Marcus's eye level. Hey, buddy, you okay? What happened to your ice cream? Through his tears, Marcus managed to explain his routine Tuesday walk, his stop at Henderson's store, his decision to sit and enjoy his treat. His words came in hiccups and gasps, punctuated by the kind of raw, honest emotion that no adult could fake. Ma'am, Officer Rodriguez said, turning to Hoa with barely concealed irritation. This boy lives in this neighborhood. He's not conducting surveillance. He's being a kid. You don't understand the bigger picture, Hoa insisted, her voice taking on the condescending tone of someone who believed she knew better than everyone around her. Gang recruitment has become increasingly sophisticated. They use children as scouts now. The patterns are all there if you know what to look for. And what patterns would those be? Officer Kim asked, his patience clearly wearing thin. Regular timing, strategic positioning, innocent cover activities. It's all documented in the community safety materials I've been studying. Hoa pulled out her leather notebook, flipping through pages of meticulously recorded observations. Tuesday, 3:47 p.m. Subject observed at position Charlie 7. Tuesday, 3:51 p.m. Subject maintains position for extended surveillance window. Mrs. Patterson stepped forward, her voice shaking with suppressed anger. Position, Charlie 7. That's the public sidewalk in front of the Hendersons' house. Marcus walks home from the corner store every Tuesday, because that's when his mother works late shift and Mr. Henderson gives him a treat. The crowd of neighbors that had gathered murmured their agreement. People were coming out of houses now, drawn by the commotion and staying for the spectacle. Children peeked around their parents' legs, confused by the adult drama unfolding before them. Diana Thompson arrived at that moment, still wearing her hospital scrubs, having received a frantic call from Mrs. Patterson. She took one look at her son's tear-stained face and the destroyed ice cream and felt her heart break and her anger ignite simultaneously. "What happened to my baby?" she demanded, dropping to her knees beside Marcus and pulling him into her arms. He collapsed against her, his small body shaking with the trauma of the encounter. "Your baby was conducting criminal surveillance on our neighborhood," HOA said, seeming oblivious to the way the crowd was beginning to turn against her. "I caught him red-handed and called the authorities as any responsible citizen would do." Diana looked up at HOA with the kind of maternal fury that could melt steel. "He's 10 years old. He was eating ice cream on a public sidewalk. What is wrong with you?" "What's wrong with me is that I actually care about property values and community safety," HOA shot back. "Unlike some people, I don't let my children run wild through the neighborhood, casing houses and creating security risks." The words hung in the air like poison gas, and the crowd's murmur turned decidedly hostile. "Mr. Johnson stepped forward, his grocery bags finally abandoned on his lawn. "That's enough," he said, his voice carrying the authority of a man who had served in the military and raised 3 children of his own. "Marcus is one of the best kids in this neighborhood. He helps my wife carry groceries. He reads to Mrs. Patterson's cat when she's in the hospital. He's never caused trouble for anyone." "That's exactly what makes him the perfect scout," HOA insisted, doubling down on her increasingly ridiculous theory. "Clean record, trusted by the community, access to multiple houses. It's textbook gang recruitment strategy." Officer Rodriguez exchanged a look with his partner that spoke volumes about their professional assessment of the situation. "Ma'am, I think you've been watching too many crime shows. This is a child eating ice cream, not a criminal conspiracy." But HOA was beyond reason now. Her face flushed with the kind of righteous indignation that comes from believing yourself to be the only sane person in a world gone mad. "Fine. If you won't take this seriously, I'll handle it myself. I'm calling an emergency HOA meeting. This neighborhood needs to understand the threats we're facing." She turned on her heel and marched back toward her house, leaving behind a crowd of stunned neighbors and one traumatized little boy who would never look at ice cream the same way again. That evening, Sarah Chen sat in her small apartment, staring at the footage she had accidentally captured. The video was 23 minutes long, crystal clear, and absolutely damning. She had watched it 3 times, each viewing making her angrier than the last. The way HOA had screamed at a child, the way she had destroyed his ice cream, the way she had called 911 over nothing, the way she had doubled down on her ridiculous accusations even when confronted by police and neighbors. Sarah was a journalism student with a minor in social justice, and she understood the power of viral media to create change. She also understood the responsibility that came with that power. She spent 2 hours researching Marcus's family, confirming his identity and his character through public records and neighbor interviews. She verified HOA's recent move to the neighborhood and her pattern of complaints to the HOA and city authorities. At 11:47 p.m., she uploaded the video to every social media platform she could think of, with a caption that was both factual and furious. This woman screamed at a 10-year-old boy, destroyed his ice cream, and called 911 because she thought he was conducting gang surveillance while sitting on a public sidewalk eating a treat. His name is Marcus Thompson. He's a straight-A student who helps elderly neighbors and has never been in trouble. Her name is HOA Martinez. She moved here 6 months ago and has been terrorizing this peaceful neighborhood ever since. This has to stop. The video exploded across the internet like wildfire in drought conditions. Within 6 hours, it had 50,000 views. By morning, it had reached 500,000. Major news outlets began picking up the story, and Yorkshire ice cream justice started trending on Twitter. Marcus woke up the next morning to find his mother crying at the kitchen table, her laptop open to a news article with his picture prominently displayed. "Baby," Diana said, pulling him close. "I need to tell you something. That video of what happened yesterday, it's on the internet. People are very angry about how that woman treated you." Marcus looked at the screen, seeing his own tear-streaked face frozen in a moment of terror and confusion. "Am I in trouble?" "No, sweetheart. You're not in trouble. But a lot of people want to help make sure nothing like this ever happens to you again." The support was overwhelming and immediate. A GoFundMe for Marcus's college education raised $50,000 in the first day. Henderson's corner store was flooded with customers wanting to buy ice cream in solidarity. The mayor's office issued a statement condemning racial profiling and supporting the Thompson family. But the real firestorm was reserved for HOA Martinez. Her real estate company began receiving hundreds of negative reviews and cancellation requests. Her husband Carlos, mortified by his wife's behavior and the damage to his business reputation, was forced to issue a public apology and distance his company from her actions. Their homeowners association received so many complaints that they called an emergency board meeting to address the situation. HOA, meanwhile, remained defiant. She gave interviews to any outlet that would listen, insisting that she had been protecting her neighborhood and that the public reaction was an overblown response to responsible community policing. She doubled down on her gang surveillance theory, claiming that the viral video was actually proof of how sophisticated the operation had become. "They're using social media to discredit anyone who tries to expose them," she told a local news reporter, standing in front of her perfect lawn with her leather notebook clutched in her hands like a shield. "This whole thing is orchestrated to make me look like the villain, when I'm actually the only one brave enough to speak the truth." The interview went even more viral than the original video, with viewers incredulous at her continued insistence on her obviously false narrative. Mental health professionals began weighing in, discussing the psychology of people who cannot admit they are wrong even when confronted with overwhelming evidence. Meanwhile, the investigation that HOA's actions had triggered was moving forward with methodical precision. Child Protective Services had been required to open a case file based on the 911 call, and their investigation revealed not criminal activity by Marcus, but a pattern of harassment and intimidation by HOA that bordered on stalking. Detective Maria Santos, assigned to the case, spent a week interviewing neighbors and reviewing HOA's documented complaints and observations. What she found was deeply disturbing. A woman who had been systematically documenting the activities of neighborhood children with military precision, creating detailed files on their routines, friends, and family members. This goes way beyond concerned citizenship. Detective Santos told her supervisor, "She's been conducting unauthorized surveillance on minors and maintaining detailed records that could constitute stalking under state law." The HOA meeting that HOA had demanded became the climax of the entire saga. The community center had never seen such a crowd, with standing room only and news cameras positioned around the perimeter. Marcus and his mother sat in the front row, surrounded by supporters and neighbors who had rallied to their defense. Hua arrived with a thick folder of what she called evidence, still convinced that she would be vindicated once people understood the sophistication of the criminal enterprise she had uncovered. She had prepared a PowerPoint presentation complete with maps, timelines, and analysis of what she termed behavioral patterns consistent with organized criminal activity. The HOA board, led by President Janet Morrison, a retired school principal with 40 years of experience dealing with difficult people, allowed HOA to present her case first. For 27 minutes, HOA laid out her theory with the confidence of someone who had never doubted her own conclusions. "As you can see from slide 14," she said, pointing to a map of the neighborhood with Marcus's walking route, highlighted in red. The subject maintained consistent timing and positioning that maximized surveillance opportunities while maintaining plausible deniability through the ice cream consumption cover story. The crowd's reaction ranged from bewildered silence to barely suppressed laughter. When HOA finished her presentation and asked for questions, Mrs. Patterson was the first to stand. "HOA, I've lived in this neighborhood for 37 years. I've watched Marcus grow up from a baby. He's not a gang scout. He's a little boy who likes ice cream. The fact that you can't see that terrifies me." One by one, neighbors stood to speak. They talked about Marcus's character, his kindness, his helpfulness. They talked about HOA's pattern of complaints, her aggressive behavior, her obvious prejudice against the Thompson family. They talked about fear, about children being afraid to play outside, about the poisonous atmosphere she had created in what had once been a peaceful community. Mr. Henderson, 83 years old and walking with a cane, made his way slowly to the microphone. "I've been giving that boy ice cream every Tuesday for 2 years, he said, his voice shaking with emotion. "His mama works late shift at the hospital, taking care of sick people. He's never asked for anything free, always pays his dollar, always says please and thank you. If you think that child is a criminal, then you don't know anything about children or criminals or what makes a good neighborhood." The applause was thunderous and sustained. HOA sat rigid in her chair, her face pale, her hands clutching her folder so tightly that her knuckles were white. Janet Morrison called for order and then delivered the board's decision with the kind of calm authority that comes from years of dealing with bullies and troublemakers. "Mrs. Martinez, based on the evidence presented tonight and the investigation conducted by our management company, the board has voted unanimously to remove you from all HOA committees and to issue a formal censure for harassment of a neighborhood child. Furthermore, we are implementing new community guidelines that explicitly prohibit the surveillance and documentation of children's activities by residents." But the real consequences came the following week, when Detective Santos appeared at HOA's door with a warrant. The investigation had revealed that her documentation of children's activities, combined with her aggressive confrontation of Marcus, constituted criminal harassment under state law. Additionally, her false 911 call had resulted in the misuse of emergency services, a misdemeanor offense. "Mrs. Martinez, you're under arrest for harassment of a minor and false reporting to emergency services," Detective Santos said, reading HOA her rights, while news cameras captured every moment from the public sidewalk. The booking photo showed a woman who looked nothing like the confident neighborhood watch captain who had destroyed a child's ice cream just 2 weeks earlier. HOA's perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her eyes wide with the shock of someone who had finally been forced to confront the consequences of her actions. The legal proceedings moved swiftly. HOA's lawyer negotiated a plea agreement that included mandatory anger management counseling, community service, and a restraining order that prohibited her from approaching or documenting any children in the neighborhood. The judge, a mother of 3 herself, made it clear that she viewed the case as particularly serious given the victim's age and vulnerability. "Mrs. Martinez," Judge Patricia Williams said during sentencing, "you targeted a child who was doing nothing more than enjoying a simple pleasure on a summer afternoon. Your actions traumatized not just him, but an entire community. The sentence I'm imposing reflects the seriousness of using false accusations and emergency services to harass an innocent child." The financial consequences were equally severe. Carlos Martinez filed for divorce within a month, citing irreconcilable differences and the damage to his business reputation. The family's dream house in Maple Grove, went up for sale at a significant loss, and HOA was forced to move in with her sister in another state while the criminal case was resolved. But perhaps the most powerful consequence was the way the community rallied around Marcus and his family. The ice cream incident, as it came to be known, became a catalyst for positive change that extended far beyond Maple Grove. The viral video sparked conversations about implicit bias, the weaponization of emergency services, and the importance of protecting children from adult prejudices. Marcus, with his mother's guidance, used his unexpected platform to speak about kindness and the importance of treating all people with respect. He appeared on several national news programs, his quiet dignity and thoughtful responses earning him admirers across the country. "I just want kids to be able to eat ice cream without being scared," he said during one interview. A simple statement that captured the hearts of millions and became a rallying cry for anti-bullying advocates. The GoFundMe for his education eventually raised over $200,000, ensuring that Marcus would be able to attend any college he chose. Henderson's Corner Store became a destination for ice cream lovers from across the region, with Mr. Henderson hiring 2 part-time employees to help with the increased business and establishing a scholarship fund for local students. 6 months after the incident, Maple Grove had returned to its peaceful rhythms, but with a renewed sense of community solidarity and vigilance against the kind of hatred that HOA had brought to their neighborhood. Children played freely on the sidewalks again, but parents were more aware of the importance of speaking up when they witnessed injustice. Marcus still walked to Henderson's store every Tuesday, and he still sat on the curb to enjoy his ice cream. But now, he was often joined by other children, and sometimes by adults who remembered the importance of protecting innocence and celebrating simple joys. The spot where his ice cream had been smashed into the concrete became an unofficial memorial to the power of community action and the importance of standing up for what's right. Someone had painted a small ice cream cone on the sidewalk, and neighbors often left flowers or small tokens of support. HOA Martinez never returned to Maple Grove. The last anyone heard, she was living quietly in her sister's town, having completed her court-mandated counseling and community service. Whether she learned anything from the experience remains unknown, but her impact on the community she tried to terrorize became a lasting testament to the power of ordinary people to stand up against extraordinary cruelty. On the first anniversary of the ice cream incident, the neighborhood held a block party in Marcus's honor. Children ran through sprinklers, while adults shared stories and laughter under the summer sun. Mr. Henderson, now 84 and still serving ice cream to anyone who wanted it, raised a toast to the boy who had taught an entire community about courage, dignity, and the importance of never letting bullies win. Marcus, now 11 and taller, but still gentle, stood with his mother as the crowd applauded. He thought about that terrible Tuesday afternoon and how scared he had been, but also about all the good that had come from the darkness. He had learned that sometimes the worst moments in life can become the seeds of the best changes, and that ice cream tastes even sweeter when shared with people who care about justice and kindness. As the sun set over Maple Grove, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, the sound of children's laughter filled the air once again. The ice cream truck's melody drifted down the tree-lined streets, and somewhere in the distance, a 10-year-old boy was walking home with a cone in his hand and hope in his heart, knowing that he lived in a community where good people would always stand up for what's right. The story of Marcus Thompson and his ice cream became more than just a viral video or a news cycle phenomenon. It became a reminder that evil triumphs only when good people do nothing, and that sometimes the smallest acts of cruelty can awaken the largest movements of compassion. In a world that often seems divided by fear and suspicion, The residents of Maple Grove proved that love, justice, and vanilla ice cream on a Tuesday afternoon will always be more powerful than hatred. And in the end, that's what matters most.